Committee meeting. Today is Monday, December 11th. Tanya, can you verify that the meeting has been properly posted? It has, thank you. We are now at the section of our meeting that is open for public comment. Have we received anyone who would like to speak? No, we haven't. No one? Okay. Moving into our first action item is the approval of the minutes. Is there any questions or discussion on the minutes?
I second it.
Lyon. It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say no. Passes 5-0. The next item for action is the approval of the vouchers. Did we receive any questions?
There were no questions this month.
There were no questions. Is there anything for discussion or commentary? Be looking for a motion to approve then?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. And it passes 5-0. We are now moving into our discussion and information items. The first item is a district technology report.
Yeah, Steve Stallman's here tonight. This was requested a few months back, and wanted to give a high-level status report of all the things that Steve's department's working on. So I'll turn it over to him, and hopefully he can connect to
the technology.
the technology.
That
So
might-
a true test.
First test here. Thanks, Darren. I think I'm sensing that it was a slow news day today, so that's why I'm here. But,
We have a very informative meeting agenda tonight.
okay,
So
that's what I thought you
fit
said.
right into
Which
that.
I interpreted to mean we brought Steve on board because we had nothing else to talk about.
We're very excited, though.
Okay,
There's been a lot of
good.
good stuff that we want to hear
Good.
about.
All right, cool. All right, let's see, does it work? It works, awesome. So, let's see, so I think you all had this PowerPoint or this PDF ahead of time, but we'll, go through and present it anyway. First, let's talk about the fact that I'm on the wrong slide. Here, let's start up here, how does that sound? There we go. You probably, I think you're all on the all district email list, so you probably see a lot of my emails that come out. So I've been emailing quite a bit about Blackboard. Blackboard, we've used Blackboard as our LMS, which is our primary system that teachers use to manage their classrooms, especially at the secondary level. We've been using Blackboard for probably 15 years. Blackboard is undergoing a significant change. They were purchased about 2 years and a half ago by Anthology, which is more of a secondary LMS provider. And they've had a large infusion of cash, which has basically spurred their development. We've seen more new things come out of Blackboard in the last year than we saw in the previous 5 years probably. So we're in a good place right now, I think. Last year, I wouldn't have necessarily said that. We were contemplating switching to some other vendor, perhaps Canvas or one of the other vendors, but I think what we're seeing now is helping us think that we're on the right track with that vendor. And so we're in January, we'll be switching to what's called their Ultra base navigation, which Ultra is the term they're using for a more mobile-friendly, more user interface that's more modern. Their current user interface has been around for the last 10 years. Doesn't really play well on mobile devices. So this interface is a big improvement for that. It's not going to be any significant change in the course structure itself yet, but next year we will be seeing changes in the course structure as well. But in January, we'll be switching to a new navigation, which essentially means your sidebar is going to change and the way that looks changes a little bit. We chose to do that in the middle of the school year, right at semester change, because it's very, very hard to get any kind of activity in the summer. Once teachers leave, there's not a lot that you can communicate with them. You can't test things, you can't do things. And the start of school is very stressful for staff and students, so we just chose not to add that to that stress level by switching that at that time. So we're switching at semester, which I think is going to help us a lot. We're doing a lot of prep work to get folks ready for that, so that's a big change. I linked in a little video there. I'm not going to play it tonight, but you go ahead and in your handouts that you got, you should be able to click on that and watch that, and it'll give you a little idea of what the new user interface is going to look like. Any questions on Blackboard before we go forward? ClassLink, that's...
I do, just,
okay,
it's just
go
a
ahead.
quick one.
Sure.
So what has the user feel been so far?
It's been
Positive?
positive. So we have a group of about 15 teachers that have been working with us to beta test this in the environment, and it's been quite positive, actually.
Good.
And so we haven't had any student interaction with it yet, but we're going to be messaging to students here real soon. But I don't think it's going to be a big issue for students. They usually can figure things out fairly quickly.
Yeah, agreed.
And so, yeah, it's just basically going to be, menus are going to be in a little different spot. They're going to be called something a little bit different. So once you figure out where you're going, it's it'll probably be a couple weeks of like scratching head going, where is this at? How does this work?
Got it, okay, good.
Okay. ClassLink, that was something we implemented last year, at the end of the year last year, but this is our first full year into it. It is really a portal that's allowing us to collect all of our curricular resources and a lot of our ancillary websites and things, resources that we've had in the past. It's just giving us one launch pad for students to be able to find that very quickly. And it also integrates with our single sign-on system, which we've been working on a lot to increase our security and allow us to simplify logins, things like that. Not have to have passwords stuck under keyboards and on sticky notes and things like that. So, so ClassLink is really brought us full circle in that. It's also simplified a lot of our rostering. We have to send rosters out to many applications so that they can create accounts, provision accounts for us, and create things. So there's a lot of work that has to go into that every year. As we change school years, and ClassLink has helped us sort of streamline that a lot. Any questions on ClassLink? Web filter change, I think everybody's familiar with the fact that we changed our, we also changed our firewall at the same time. Our firewall was the same vendor we were using for our web filter. We moved to Securely on our iPads for our students, and then we moved to a different firewall vendor for our general purpose filtering and security, network security on our network. So that was a big change. We're still sort of rubbing off the rough spots in Securely. It is a good, I would say it's a really, really good filtering option. Too good in some cases, and the fact that it's locked out some things that were essential to folks that they were using. So we've had to figure out ways to sort of work around that a little bit and get those resources available to them. But now I think we've settled in with it. I think if the beginning of the school year was a little rough because people were like, I send out emails saying, don't assume things that worked last year are going to work this year. Well, pretty much everybody did assume that they were going to work. And as we got into the school year, it was like, no, I just told you it might not work. So, so we've figured that out. So I think we're in good shape there. So any questions on Securely?
Mr. Webb?
Yeah, real quick, so I'm assuming there are administrative functions within Securely that allow you to open up websites is that on a user basis or like a user type basis? Okay.
we have 3 profiles in Securely that we currently have, which is the high school, middle school, and elementary school.
Okay, and is there one for staff as well?
Staff don't get filtered by Securely, staff get filtered by our firewall.
Okay.
So,
right.
yeah.
So I'm assuming, and I believe I've seen something on this, but if you could just refresh my memory. There is a formal process for requesting access to something that is otherwise blocked, is that correct?
That is true. yes.
Okay, and that process seems to be working well to address some of these rough spots you talked about where there are things that crop up that have been accessible and should still be, that we can get that turned around pretty quickly?
Yes, I mean, essentially, the process goes through me first, and I will evaluate it to see if it's something that, makes sense. If it's something that's, well, okay, yeah, this is a no-brainer, it's an educational resource, it was categorized incorrectly and securely or something like that, then we'll just open it up. If it's something, we've only had, I think, one other thing that possibly would, I was like, I don't know about that. And then, I would consult with Dr. Siebert or the teaching and learning folks, and we would come to a consensus on, probably on that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep.
I just had one follow-up on that.
Sure.
One of the issues that we had last year with Global VPN was the students being able to disable or what we thought could disable or turned on and off. That is not a possibility with this, correct?
That is correct. They cannot uninstall it.
That's what it was,
It's installed in a different way than it was in the past. It's not an app. It's installed in what's called a global proxy, which is a setting in the iPad that they can't get to.
Good, thank you.
Yep. Another big change this year is special ed documents in IC, in Infinite Campus. In the past, we've used Oasis for many, many years. Oasis is an awesome product for special ed, but it was not tightly integrated with Infinite Campus. In fact, it wasn't integrated at all. We had to do that integration in-house, for the last 10 years. We no longer have those staff resources to be able to do that custom programming in-house. And so it was no longer cost-effective to continue with that product. So we began a transition process. This year is a transition year where we're working in both in it, Oasis for existing things and then transferring them over to Infinite Campus. But by next year, we will have all special ed document management going on in Infinite Campus, and then we will be also in compliance with reporting, state reporting, because we've had some real concerns there, some real issues there, and that that we had to do a lot of extra work to get that reporting done, because state reporting comes directly out of Infinite Campus. It doesn't come out of Oasis. And so those types of things there was a lot of make work going on there. So, any questions on that? So that's the instruction-related tech. I have it in 2 categories. This one's categorized as infrastructure related tech. So this is behind-the-scenes things that you don't necessarily see every day. WebEx cloud calling, we transitioned this year from an on-premise telephone system. If you pick up the phone, you're probably not even going to know the difference, but behind the scenes there's a lot going on that's different. Some of the big features that we went to, we have SMS text messaging now. From a district phone number, you can send a text message from your WebEx app. This has been highly well received in terms of the staff. Special ed staff, especially for people reaching out to families, they find that text messaging is much more responsive. They get a better response from families when they text message versus when they call on the phone. And it's problematic to use. No one wants to use their personal cell phone number, obviously, for obvious reasons. This has allowed them to use their district phone number and send text messages, receive text messages as well. The mobility is much better because it's configured in the cloud. So wherever you are, your WebEx app is connecting and allowing you to use your district phone number. Allows you to allows administrators to make calls in the evening from their district phone number and not have to be in the building, things like that. So, allows, I know, Sharon Thiede would tell you that, when she had her broken foot, she was able to operate right out of her house, just like she was in her office. So, it's a very, very good, option for folks to be able to continue work. As we know, the line between work and home has gotten very gray, and we never quite sure. I'm usually getting messages or calls like when I'm in the shower or things like that, so my phone is usually, and I can choose to take those if I want, but I don't necessarily, because most of my calls I get are from vendors or spam or something like that, so. It's also simplified the support and the billing, because no longer do we have an on-premise piece of equipment that we have to support and pay maintenance contracts on. It's all in the cloud now, and so, and the billing, no longer do we have, long-term contracts for, SIP trunks or any of these kind of phone contracts that you have to get into for long-term. It's basically day by day, so if we needed another phone number added or another, we could just add one and we would start billing that day. If we didn't need it any longer, we would stop that service and stop being billed. So much more simplified that way. Any questions on that? All right, Verkada. Well, this is something that everyone's familiar with. I'm going to click on this and we should jump over into I think it's also over here. So this is the dashboard for the current Verkada project, and it'll show you the progress that we're making. There's several elementary schools that are already fully completed. Meadowbrook was our first school. We started with them. They're 100% complete, other than the door access and the viewing station. You'll see these viewing stations marked as on hold. The viewing station essentially is an Apple TV that allows administrators to quickly look at all their cameras just using their Apple TV remote. Much simpler way of doing things as opposed to having to log in or do things with an app. Those are just on hold because we don't have the TVs put in place yet for them to plug into. But Meadowbrook was our first school. Prairie is pretty much all complete. Rose Glen is complete. STEM Elementary is complete. Saratoga is complete. They're working in Blair now. They've been in here this week. We also are, we've tested out the new card readers for the access cards. We were testing them here at this building first. We've got 2 doors that are being utilized, and those seem to be working great. Also have the ability, once the cameras are in place, we've already been able to use the tamper alerts on the cameras. We've had a few instances where kids have thrown balls at the cameras, and we've caught them. We had one instance where a vehicle ran into the camera, so you get an alert from the tamper, and then you also get the video basically of what's going on. Then you just send it off to the principals. Are like, well, we'll talk to them. That's so they know it's not a target. So a lot of the new features are already starting to come to fruition in the system. Ease of management, a lot easier to manage. Again, simpler. Don't have to have on-premise servers, things like that. So.
I'm going to jump into, because there's a lot of stuff about this that I was really excited about when we first approved this as a board. The viewing stations. So what are we doing now? We have to log in, so if there's an alert, you're actually logging in?
Yeah, so a lot of times the building secretaries will keep a separate screen up or a window, and then they'll be logged into a piece of software. But it is nowhere near as easy to do today than as Verkada is. Verkada allows you to, you can basically just use your Apple TV remote to click through. You can see all your cameras on the TV if you're in not a huge school maybe, or if you might have 2 pages with the exterior, interior cameras. They also have the ability to have a camera that or a zone in that viewing station that allows you to see the cameras that are the most active. They also have what's called a heat map, which allows you to look at a map layout of your building and shows you where the most activity is happening. So if there's concern that there might be a fight in an area or something like that, and you see a whole lot of activity happening in one area, that would show up on your map. So it's, but the viewing stations are gonna be, once they get put in, I think that's gonna be a game changer for them, seeing a simple use of the cameras and viewing.
And when are we doing those, do we think?
As soon as we can get our TVs basically installed, so.
And then we talked at one point about access, so is there one specific person at each building, or is this centralized under your team that has access to monitoring?
The principals definitely have access to all their cameras at their building, inside and outside. That's always been the case. The administrative assistants will have access to specific cameras typically, cameras that they might need. It would be entrance cameras, probably cameras that are outside the building, wouldn't necessarily have all the cameras. And they typically don't have the ability to search video. Principals would. They would just, the secretaries would just have like a live view, right?
Yep, okay.
Yeah, so, and then, pretty much it's administrators, right, the higher level administrators here at Lindholm. Buildings and grounds, there's, a couple of, Chad, Kyle probably would have that. Mike Kelly, who is the, administrator of all of the locks and, security. Myself, a couple of people on my staff, so.
Okay, good. And I think that, it eliminates a lot of the work that was previously being done under the old systems.
Yes, the ease with which one of these cameras goes in is just unbelievable. You basically pull it out of the box, there's a QR code on it, you scan it with your Verkada app, it registers itself, connects up, downloads any new firmware it needs, and then you name it and you put it in a location and you're done. Whereas the old one, you had to make sure you had the right drivers installed, you had to make sure it was connected to the server, you had to make sure you had enough disk space on the server, things like that. So
Okay.
just a lot easier, a lot administratively, a lot easier to manage.
Then my final question is, when do you think will be fully implemented?
I'm gonna guess we're gonna be done with cameras, probably about March, probably in that time frame, depending on what the weather happens. If the weather stays like it has been the last week, we might be done earlier. But then door access, we might be, out into April before that's done. But door access the cameras was really where we wanted to get started. Door access, we can still function on the old system. It's just that the new system is tightly integrated, obviously. So when somebody scans a badge at the door, you actually have a shot of who scanned that badge, right? So
Perfect.
somebody opens a door that's not a controlled door, you can see a shot of the picture of the person leaving that door, so,
Good, thank you.
okay. Any other questions on Verkada? Okay, so the last item on the list was, or not, I have one other page, but the relocation of the SDW admin building. That was obviously a very big project for us this year. We're pretty much complete with it now, but transitioning a lot of our resources to the cloud has helped us shrink down our data center footprint, and we were able to close our data center at Lindholm and move into a much smaller space at Lindholm, which we are co-locating with Carroll. We were able to negotiate that colo agreement, and that's been working out very good for us. We have new air conditioning in that space now, so hopefully, my fingers are crossed that we'll make it through the winter without any issues, because believe it or not, air conditioning doesn't operate very good in the winter, and we always had our most heat issues in the winter. And so Carol has, up to this point, has not occupied that building yet, so I'm just crossing my fingers that things go well there. But yeah, it is good for us because we saved a lot of money by not having to relocate all that fiber. We have probably, I don't know, 500 strands of fiber going into that building, all over the city. City uses it, Carroll uses it, we use it, a lot of people use it. In fact, that's the next line item here is WeCan. I don't know if you're familiar with WeCan. I'm gonna click that and just show you. This is an organization, a consortium that we're part of. We were one of the 3 founding members of that. Carroll, WCTC, and us formed the original agreement, and then quickly the city and the county were on board. But now we're up to, I believe, 14 members. So you can kind of scroll through this and see who the members are, are. But essentially, we share our fiber and have a mutual benefit agreement, right? So if I need to get over to, for instance, Carroll Grad Center is where we connect to WISCNet. That's where our internet provider is. So we have fiber that runs up there, but then we go into their grad center on their fiber. They transition through our fiber to get out to Kettle Moraine, and then they've got some resources out there. We go on the city. We use some of the city fiber in some cases. The city uses some of our fiber to get to their parks. We use fiber, the county uses some of our fiber to get out to Retzer. We've got a lot of sharing agreements going on because it's dark fiber, right? When you put fiber in the ground, you put 12 strands of fiber or maybe 24 strands, and it doesn't really cost you that much more than if you put 2 strands in. So you're going to put that dark fiber in there, and since it's sitting there doing nothing, you might as well, use it for these purposes. So our organization has grown a lot, and now we're able to reach all the way out to Franklin. We're out at Franklin. We're out to Alverno College. We connect out to Alverno College with fiber, and those are giving us redundant paths by which we can get redundant internet connections, services that we may need out there. For instance, the city is using a lot of that for the water project. They're connecting to the outflow station in Franklin using that network. So it's benefiting all the members. So any questions on that? That's been an organization we've been members since I started. Right after I came here, we joined it, or we created it. So all right, so last slide, I believe this is, Darren wanted me to put in just a slide here to talk about the details of our fiber optic network, which it's probably 20 years ago now that the board decided to put that in. And this is what we have currently. It's a list of the fiber that we use for, I use it for billing purposes. So we get money refunded back to us through E-rate for maintenance of that. The city maintains the fiber network for us, and then we pay them through E-rate funds to maintain that for us. But this is what every year I have to bid that out, and the city is always the lowest bidder, but these are things that the city calls in their own locates. If you call Digger's Hotline or whatever, the city does all their own locates on that fiber and things, so they send out their own crews to do that. So any questions on that network? Firewall changes, I think I talked about that a little bit earlier, but we changed firewall vendors primarily due to cost. We were very happy with our Palo Alto firewall, but their price increased about 60% in 1 year. And so we had to decide to leave them because we couldn't afford it any longer. And so now we've moved to a different firewall vendor. Last part here is just talking a little bit about cybersecurity and some of the things that we're working with here. We use Microsoft Azure as our single sign-on source, and Microsoft has a lot of really good tools in that area, and so we utilize them. increased year after year, the different tools we use in there. We obviously have all staff now required to do multi-factor authentication to get logged in. Just on a meeting today with DPI, again, talking about some of the cyber attacks that are going around the state, and they continue to say every one of those attacks would be stopped if you had MFA. So yeah, I think that we're in a good spot there, that we've been able to transition that. My goal is to get some of the high school students actually on MFA by the end of the year. That's going to be a bit of a challenge, but I think we do have a good device for that. The iPad's going to lend itself to the fact that a lot of other organizations, they don't have student devices that would support a MFA authenticator, which we do. They would, they need to give them a key or something, an independent key to do that, but ours, I think, will work great for that. Our phishing training, I'm sure all of you have received multiple phishing emails. People think that I sit up and invent these things. I do not. I, pay good money to have somebody else subjugate us to torture. But we do that, and it has its benefits. We are also a member of the Wisconsin Cyber Response Team. I don't know if you knew this existed, but it's a division of the emergency management in Wisconsin. There is a team of volunteers that will come out and help you recover from a cyber attack. It's also, we have a monthly call which has, I don't know, probably 100 people on it. It's run by the National Guard, and a lot of good information, a lot of good training comes out of that. And then we're also a member of MS-ISAC, which is it's a national organization for information sharing something, cyber security. But we get free weekly reports on our cybersecurity, which is available to any government entity or education entity. So we'll get an email. My network engineer and myself, we get email every Monday morning saying it basically runs a small pen test to try and probe your network to see if there's any vulnerabilities, but we get that for free every week. So, any questions on cyber? I think that is it.
Any questions? I think this was great. I mean, I think it's a really good update that we need, and I think we have you, slated once or twice a year. And I think this was informative, and it gives, you guys have done a tremendous amount in just a year from where we last talked about a lot of the IT upgrades and enhancements, and to know that there's the safety and security around all of the kids and system, I think is really beneficial, so.
Yeah.
A lot of work. Ms. Piasek?
Thank you. I think I have an easy question, but I noticed some of the changes we make are because cost goes up on certain subscriptions. Some of the changes are because we need better technology or we need better security. Overall, what has been the direction of costs associated with our technology infrastructure, and how do we plan accordingly?
Great question. So on average, I would say after COVID, we saw, that inflation year, we saw things go up. When I mentioned the firewall going up 60%, that was an extreme case. That's the highest we saw, but typical cost increase was about 20%. We were seeing anywhere from 15 to 20% increases on everything. And so, yeah, we have to make judgments on, is this a essential service? Prior to that, I prided ourselves on giving what I call a really, I won't say Cadillac anymore because Cadillac's not the ultimate. It's a Tesla version, I guess the Tesla support organization, where we were given a lot of services for the size of our support organization. And so now I've had to make judgment calls. It's like, do we dial that back and just not have that level of functionality? But I'm always trying to squeeze as much as possible out of the dollars that we have. And, but we do make trade-offs, you know, we get rid of certain things and say, we'll replace them with this, or, our biggest challenge right now is just, we just don't have the horsepower internally anymore, the development horsepower we used to have. We used to do a lot of custom work and things like that, and we've gotten away from that. I think almost everyone has probably moved away from that and gone to more off-the-shelf products. The problem with that is it doesn't quite fit exactly, right? People are like, well, it used to be really easy, and now we got to do two more steps. And unfortunately, that's what you get when someone else writes your software for you and you don't write it. But yeah, that's the biggest challenge I would say right now is balancing the level of service to what we can afford to give.
Thank you.
I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Our next discussion item is the 2023-2024 food service report.
Jared, our director from Airmark, is here to walk you through, we have 3 or 4 months of data to share with you. We wanted to wait until we had some, I think, overall positive news to share with the committee, but we had talked during the RFP process that we would have Airmark come in once or twice a year just to see where we're at and maybe outline some things that we are discussing internally to continue to improve the program. So I'll turn it over to Jared and,
Give the presentation. And
oh,
everything more before.
once I share, no, I haven't.
I don't mind having the computer pulled up. Just push this up.
You know, with Steve here, I just didn't think I'd have to do any of this.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you for having me, allowing me 10 to 15 minutes to discuss some, like Darren said, some positive information that I'm looking forward to sharing with you. I think it's important that we talk a little bit about agenda. So what we're going to talk about is, in here is broken down by breakfast and lunch, elementary school, middle school, and high school. We have a new tool. It's called Campus Metrics, and it's really cool. It allows me at my fingertips to be able to identify kind of where our meals are, where they're projecting at, and then I can also look at meals versus prior year just to kind of see where we are, look to see where enrollment was this year versus last year, because obviously that plays a factor in the amount of kids that are eating with us, the percentage of kids that are eating with us. I've always got great pictures. I'm always having my staff take pictures and send them to me. They may not be the most chef quality pictures, but they like to send me different pictures that they send me. So I've got some of that to share with you. Some growth and some opportunities that Darren had mentioned before that we're continuously having discussions at the school level with the principals and staff. And then, of course, we always like to look forward to. It's always important for us to talk about what we've done in the past, but then in addition to that, I want to look forward to, hey, what's coming next as we end 2023 and as we move into 2024. So the first slide showing right there, out of the six slides that are going to talk a little bit about some of the statistics, this is the one, I'm going to get it out of the way right away, the elementary breakfast. So basically what those graphs look like, the very top one tells you this is how many meals we've served. So just under 19,000 breakfasts in the elementary school we've served. And this is just November data. I felt like this was the most relevant data, so I pulled all of November. And so you'll see there, the only red number you'll see throughout this presentation is we're down 339 total meals. That's throughout all 12 elementary schools, and that's meals per service day, which means we're down about 20 meals per day. So if you think about it, divided by the 12 elementary schools, we're talking maybe less than 2 meals per day.
And also, just so I don't forget to say it, keep in mind, enrollment's not stagnant. We have about 250 fewer elementary students in our schools this year compared to last year as well. So.
Thank you, Darren. And then also I ran the data for the last 2 weeks for December. It's actually flipped. So not only have we covered those 20 that we were losing and got back to even, but we're actually at a plus 10. So we're actually, serving 4 or 5 more meals, 30 more meals per day versus November. So we're back to the net positive. So, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the changes that we made. This data at my fingertips is fantastic because we're able to identify and we're able to adapt to get that red number into a green number. Moving into elementary lunch, you can see we've served over 35,000 meals for lunch just at the elementary level. We're up almost 50 meals per day for lunch. Moving into the middle school breakfast. So middle school breakfast and high school breakfast has always been a challenge. It's not only Waukesha, it's everywhere. For some reason, there's always been a stigma around eating breakfast. I don't know whether you're too cool or you just don't have time for it. Whereas the elementary school, sometimes they lead them down there, or there's breakfast in the classroom, so it's right there in front of them. And again, we'll talk about some solutions moving forward. But as you can see there, even at the middle school, we're up almost 70 meals per service day overall, which is very impressive. And our staff has been working extremely hard, and we'll talk about some of the reasons on why that is. Moving into middle school lunch, over 21,000 meals we've served, and that's almost 20 meals per service day versus prior year. And then lastly, high school, my favorite. We're up almost, 40 meals at breakfast. Again, for only serving 26 or 3,000, we're up over almost 700 meals versus prior year. And this is comparing same service days, because it obviously multiplies the amount of meals times the amount of service days that we've had. So it's apples to apples. So it's not like we've had more service days. I compared similar data to kind of show where we were last year versus where we are now. And then lastly, at the high school level for lunch, 88 meals per service day. We're definitely feeling that at the high schools. There's only 2 lunches, and it's kind of busy as it is. Our cashiers and our staff are definitely feeling those 88 that are coming through. There's no doubt about that. But our team's doing a fantastic job with speed of service, which we recognize is something that's extremely important to get kids in, get kids out. Some of the challenges that we face with open campus and the opportunity at South to go to the Pick and Save, or if you're at West and they have the new little way to get to Quick Trip. Other ways, we have speed of service is one of our biggest things that we've been tasked with to get kids in and out, because how busy it is in those cafes during those 2 lunch periods. Some kids see that line and they just bolt because they think they can just take off in their car and go get something faster. So we've put a big emphasis on that. And of course, I wanted to throw some pictures in there. Our executive chef, Jill, she does a fantastic job every Sunday morning. She gathers pictures from our elementary, middles, and high, and we almost kind of have mini contests with each other just to say, hey, look, I want you to take pictures. They're not the 5-star chef quality in portrait mode, etc. You kind of get a mixed bag. You get what you get. I kind of siphon through there and try to pick ones that were the best and put them in there. So there's just a couple examples of some pictures. You have tacos, French toast stick day. I mean, you can't go wrong there. That one in the middle is catering. Jill knows. Jill does so much catering around here. It's fantastic. I know I've heard from multiple people here in this building and other locations as well. She does a fantastic job with catering, which is awesome because she's fantastic at that. I'm not. You got some ropa vieja right there, spicy chicken. So a bunch of different pictures. The second slide there's got more pictures too. Can't go wrong with breakfast day. The kids absolutely love that. On the top right, you've got some chef salads that are getting ready to be prepared at the elementary school. That was a new addition this year to one of our cold options, and the kids are loving it. So,
They are.
yes, the salads are a huge hit.
I mean, the food looks great. I'm just going to comment, right? And to know that this is the food that's actually being served to our students, I think is really great to see.
And I think one thing that we took out of last year, and I don't want to divulge too far back into the contract and moving forward is and I took ownership of it, is I don't think I did a good enough job of being transparent and telling our story and kind of what we did. And these are things that we've always done, but I think it's important that I'm able to get in front of all of you and show these things because you guys aren't able to be in schools every day and see the things that we're doing and some of the promotions that we're having. So I took it upon myself as, it's important for me to be able to tell our story so I can give justice to our staff, the ones that are actually putting in the work and doing all this, because they do a fantastic job in and out, and it's important that you guys see that as well. So I'm glad to hear that you enjoy the pictures. So as we go into, as I had mentioned before, some growth and some opportunities, you saw those numbers at the elementary school, and Darren, thank you for pointing that out. We're down 20 meals. in terms of meals per service day in November, we're actually up 10, like I'd mentioned, is in December through 2 weeks. And if you look at the graph on that, it's continued to traject forward. But some of the reasons behind some of that, introduction to hot breakfast, we heard loud and clear. Hot breakfast was needed in the elementary schools. So whether it's a breakfast pizza or breakfast sandwiches that we introduced, or even waffles, the kids absolutely love waffles and sausage and different breakfast items. So we started off with that. It was a little bit of a slow start. You know, kids are sometimes used to some of those dry, cold items, and so we went strategically with just hot items to get started. And then we heard loud and clear through principal feedback. We would go around and talk to them. Our leads are well connected with our teachers and staff and principals and have that day-to-day interaction. And one thing that they did come back with is like, hey, we love the hot options, but we think we can drive even more participation if you're able to incorporate even, some of those items. So some of those dry and cold items. So not necessarily Pop-Tarts and stuff like that every single day. I told them absolutely not, but bring some of those grains and give them options, right? Because at the middle schools and high schools, there's open, you're able to get whatever you want, whereas the elementary school, you're a little bit more reserved. There's only so many different things that you can get. So we do have a cart. So there's 3 items on like a 3-tier cart that they're able to get if they don't like that. And we've seen that to be extremely popular, especially the last month. The ratio that we thought was going to be like 90% hot, 10% cold has actually started to shift closer to 50-50, which is fine because at the end of the day, our goal and our responsibility is to make sure kids get fed, right? We introduce the hot food. It's still wildly popular depending on what the items are, but I think variety is a huge part in the elementary from the breakfast, and that's why we're starting to see those numbers shift a little bit. The regionalized, that's okay. The regionalized menus. So one thing that's new this year from just the Midwest region in general is a regionalized menu. So as you can imagine, food service in a K-12 world is very difficult when you're planning out menus. It's highly regulated and meeting sodium targets and making sure they get enough fruits and vegetables and grains and meats and et cetera. So what was nice is there was a rollout of a regional menu. And the nice thing, again, is that we were able to tweak that. So it's not just a one-size-fits-all. We didn't just take a menu, which is the same menu that Cedarburg uses, which is the same menu that everyone else uses. We're able to take favorites that we know through historical data that pair really well, and we're able to do that. But it took a lot of the guesswork out of us and having to make sure that the calories matched and everything matched. We were able to load in a 5-week menu cycle that is nutritious, meets all of the requirements from the USDA and DPI, and roll that out. And the nice thing is our registered dietitian, especially in the elementary menus, are able to each month now kind of go through, hey, this really wasn't a big seller. Let's look to incorporate this. So we're take that regional menu and we're really taking it to the local level at the Waukesha where the kids see what the kids like, and then we're kind of pairing those items up. We're still doing 2 hot items and 1 cold item, so I have 3 different entrees to choose from. We still have multiple fresh fruits, multiple vegetables, while also using our commodity allotment that we get. And then obviously the 2 flavored milks as well, so it's been extremely popular as well. Last thing with elementary schools, and I know Darren mentioned with the lower enrollment, I am able to drill down into the schools that are a little bit lower in participation. So my anticipation is now that we've got some data, kind of sit down with those principals, sit down with the leads at those schools and try to identify, hey, do we need to introduce maybe a breakfast in the classroom? Would they be interested in doing that? Or taking a look at the free and reduced changes at those schools, has that impacted anything? And again, like Darren had mentioned, the enrollment decline, does that play a factor into it as well? But that being said, 250 students down while really being back to normal now, I think is a huge stride for us. And then continuing on to middle school, a lot of it's similar. Obviously, we're able to utilize the regional menus. One of the big things that I tasked our team with, they make fantastic food, compliment on the great pictures. We need to do a better job at making sure that we have presentation plates out there. Kids are seeing it. We're giving them samples of items. We do that quite often, items that they don't normally see. We put them in little portion cups and let them try it before they like it. We don't want them to spend their money if it's a new item they don't like it. And we find that there's a lot more engagement, a lot more communication back and forth and trustworthy when they get to try it before they buy it. So that's extremely important. I had mentioned speed of service is another thing. A lot of these kids don't have a ton of time, so we like to get them through the line as quickly as possible while also giving them the best customer service possible, and that's extremely helpful as well. limited time offers and special event promotions. We have a monthly calendar that we roll out that both my executive chef and dietitian, who does the elementary and then middle and high school, they layer those in. So there's always a limited time offer or special event day. Could be National Cookie Day, could be National Pizza Day, and we'll do different kinds of pizza. And there's always marketing around it that we like to celebrate that. So that's extremely important too, and the kids really get into it. And then the only other thing that I would say about the high school, our biggest opportunity that I mentioned before is around breakfast at the high schools, and something that we were able just to bring in some new carts. They're like 5 tiers, and they're kind of like a la carte racks. And what we do is instead of having one option or one location where you can get breakfast from, the idea is we're going to start spreading out throughout the school because kids are coming in all over the place. I'll probably partner with Steve or somebody to figure out how we can get laptops or a register, like a mobile register, to be able to go around. I think access is a huge, and I'll talk about it here in a little bit with South, but access is a huge issue. And if we can spread out throughout breakfast and give kids opportunities to get breakfast as they're coming in through different doors, I think that'll be extremely important. All right, so some marketing and action. So this was actually just completed last week, and I'm extremely excited. It's a Les Paul Rally Cafe, so it's kind of our middle school dining brand. As you can see, pictures on the left. Again, sorry, that's pictures from my iPhone. It's not the best. But yeah, as you can see, it's red. It's fantastic, but there's not really a whole lot going on there. And we are able to bring in the Cardinal logo in 3 different locations. The Rally Cafe, it's got different signage. And I think it really just brings a pop to the location. And I'm excited to see what that's actually going to do for meal participation. I think it's going to grow. We were able to just get access and place our menus on the menu screens, which are right next to the cafe. So there's no guesswork into what we're having or any of that stuff. So I'm extremely excited for that and grateful for that opportunity. All right, and then a pod market. So if it's called Provisions on Demand. Think of it as a airport kiosk. The idea here is at South High School to implement one of these pod markets. The idea around it is and I always say this is location, location, location. So currently where the South kitchen is, it's kind of on one side of the school. Something that I've talked to some administrators and some teachers about is, you know, when we talk about second chance breakfast, and when I say second chance breakfast, it means between first period and second period. Not every kid, when they come into school, they're either rushing into class or they don't get an opportunity to come all the way down to the cafe because their classroom's on the other side. The idea around a second chance breakfast is for kids to be able to, in between first and second period, be able to get breakfast. Or if they don't want to come down to the cafe for lunch because it's all the way down on the other side, the idea around this is it's a one-stop shop. Where kids can get breakfast, second chance breakfast, and then also we'd be open during lunch. We would have hot shoots, beverages. It's customizable to anything you want. As you can see there, the idea around it is access, convenience, speed of service. And I've got some examples from a different district and how they implemented it. It's open to students regardless of, you know, free, reduced, or paid. It's got a la carte on there. It's got reimbursable meals on there. It's basically, it has the opportunity to be able to lock. So from a theft perspective, I know I met with the South staff, Maria, the principal, a couple weeks ago, along with her staff, and one of her concerns was theft, and it all locks down. It's manned by one person, a cash register. Kids come through, they grab their reimbursable meal, and they're off. So again, like I said, in my opinion, it's all about access. So another thing that we talked about, the South challenge that we have right now is there's a study hall that goes on in the cafeteria area. So those 4 or 5 doors that students would normally come through are locked. So those opportunities to come down after the breakfast period and first period is essentially over because they're not. I don't have a key to even get through there. I actually have to go around. So the opportunity to have that open during breakfast and maybe in between periods, I think we'd have a huge opportunity to catch a lot of breakfast. Not only that, but catch a lot of lunches as well, because a lot of the kids sometimes will come down and see that the line is relatively long, and they may just decide not to eat. But this is kind of just a one-stop shop that you can go through. An example is Brown. Go ahead.
Yeah, one of the things we're not struggling with, but we're working through is we'd like it on the other side of the building, closer to the auditorium entrance or the auditorium, but You also have to find a place in the hallways where the fire department will allow you to, I mean, it's not as simple as dropping this
Yeah.
pod off. And so we've met with the leadership out at South a couple of times. We've always planned this to be started at South. But if it's something that works, we envision it going to the other high schools as well.
And to the next slide here, Brown Deer High School sent me some pictures. They have, the nice thing is it's fully customizable to whatever you want it to look like. Some stats that the director over there was able to provide for me. I mean, we're currently doing over 400 meals per day over at South for lunch. If we're able to even increase that by 50 or 100 and increase that much, that's significant. And you saw the stats that were already up as it is at the high school level. I think it just gives kids, again, I'll go back to the idea around access is a big one for me. The line moves quickly, and lastly, obviously, it gives it more of a collegiate kind of feel. It's kind of a rustic, kind of a nice look to it. Obviously, all the high schools, especially North and South, have been renovated in the last few years and look fantastic, and just kind of like adds to the program that we're already running right now. All right, and then last slide is around coming soon. So first thing is focus groups, something that was definitely talked about throughout the whole process. So the idea now that we're kind of 3 months in, we've got a lot of our programs running. I plan on reaching out to at least one from each school level to at least get the process started, see if we can meet on a monthly basis. I don't know if that's a quarterly basis, one each month with each level. I'm not exactly sure what that looks like, but the plan is to reach out, see if there's any parents, any students, any teachers, any feedback. We'll sit down, sample some LTOs, sample some SEP, special event promotions, just kind of get some feedback. What do they like? What don't they like? What's going well? What's not going well? And really kind of continue to drive those numbers in a positive direction. So I'm really looking forward to leading that and getting that started as soon as we come back in January. The idea is to get that rolling right away. In addition to that, I know we talked about pulse surveys, so something that we talked about, kind of think of like a Kling or an 8.5 by 11. Students have, at the high school level, of course, have cell phones. They're able to give us instant feedback. You see that at restaurants where you can kind of give instant feedback. Gives us an opportunity to kind of see how we're doing real time. And on top of that, Aramark always rolls out a student viewpoint survey every February, which elicits feedback and tries to get feedback from students. When that day does come closer, Darren, Heather, and I will work closely. The idea would be around kind of a joint school district of Waukesha and Aramark survey. So it's one survey that goes out. I know in prior years, both surveys went out at the same time and there was some confusion around that. So we'll partner and we'll make sure that there's one survey that goes out so we can get feedback on that as well. But that being said, the pulse surveys, the samplings, the feedback that we're already getting right now through some of the numbers have been great. This is just additional data because you can never have enough data on how we're doing. And then the last thing actually just came up in the last couple weeks. I met with Molly and Erica up here. They wanted to talk to me about hydroponic gardens. So hydroponic gardens was something that I was able to work with at a prior school district, and it was a lot of fun. The idea was to bring hydroponic gardens a few years back through equipment grants. Obviously, it didn't get pushed through, but these two reached out to me and said, "Hey, we want to be involved. We've got a curriculum with food and consumer science, and we really want food service to be involved. How can we partner together?" And I said, "Fantastic." I said, "I have an executive chef right here, and I've got a registered dietitian right here." I said, "Let's meet." So we met, and we kind of have some ideas rolling around. They have some hydroponic garden farms through Fork Farms. I've worked for the Fork Farms in the past. Aramark is a partner with Fork Farms. So I basically told them, whatever you want from food service, I'm all in. Like the opportunity to partner with a curriculum and be able to be involved. Right now, we're kind of at the beginning stages of, hey, would it be okay if we brought the actual Fork Farm hydroponic garden down to the cafe, and we had like a table, and you guys were able to provide some like a beverage station with some of the herbs and stuff that they have, just to kind of create some awareness around it? I said, absolutely, I would love to. They're growing bib lettuce, and I'm really excited about the opportunities. We're just kind of scratching at the surface right now. The goal is to kind of create that partnership with both Molly and Erica to kind of take this to the next level and find ways to work together on this. So I'm extremely excited for that. But again, like I said, we just started having that conversation a couple weeks ago. I didn't know they already had Fork Farms, but yeah, I'm extremely excited for that.
The hydroponics was also an issue that Sherry Stack, my previous Director of Finance, championed. So we've had some conversations over. the last
Yes,
couple
yeah,
of
we've
years,
had
so
conversations in the past that just, it's one of those things that didn't
She'll be
take.
very happy. I'll just text her that we had it on the F and F presentation tonight, so.
Any questions? So I will start. I think this was a fantastic presentation, and one of the pieces, right, as I was on the committee, as we were going through where we were a year ago, I'm happy to see that so much that was talked about as we could do this and we could do this, and here's some splash and flash. I'm extremely pleased to see that much of that has already been implemented, to see Waukesha Stealth is taking off. But most importantly, the messaging for our elementary students was a very large sore spot for us, and to see how you have just taken the feedback, flourished. I know that Mr. Clark and I have kept in touch with some of the committee members. We have asked, I don't want to say overly frequently, but we have put out there to get some feedback as to how things are going, and to date, it's been extremely positive. Like I said, the pictures, to know that that is actually what our children are seeing. I think we've all joked about the false advertising, you go to McDonald's and you get a quarter pounder that's 4 inches thick, and you get one that looks like it's been run over by a truck. To really be able to see that in action is really, really great. The focus groups and your next steps and actions, I think that was the final piece for me that I was going to have a question on.
Yep.
We talked a lot about feedback, and our community is obviously extremely engaged in the food service to not only see that the quality of food at breakfast is being addressed, as well as the feedback received from the users in the community has been overwhelmingly positive. I'm extremely grateful for that. So this was good.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, it was definitely heard loud and clear. It took some time for some self-reflection, obviously, after that whole process, and I'm glad to hear that everything has been going well. I've heard positive feedback, but I'm only one person. I like to hear feedback from everyone else too. Obviously, everyone knows if there's anything negative or anything like that. Obviously, they know who to reach out to. So, but I appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
Dr. Piasek?
I just have a quick comment. Thank you. Really good information. The analytics are excellent. I know they help you in terms of planning, but they also help us in terms of understanding how the students are using and potentially valuing those services. So it's great to see. So just a positive reinforcement. I think the focus on the secondary variety and understanding who those students are and kind of how they're coming and going and the limited time around the lunch periods. I think anything that can be done to make it more accessible. And I know that in some cases, our high school students are eating lunch right around the time of second chance breakfast. So obviously that variety is what you're looking for. So I just appreciate the consideration into what that day looks like and why kids maybe sometimes are passing the long line and leaving. Anything we can do to keep them on campus, I think, too, is a good thing. So,
That's where we see those pods also is taking some pressure
Yeah.
off of the cafeterias now that we're down to 2 lunch periods. It's a busy couple of hours or few
Yeah,
hours.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we definitely feel it, and we've seen pods in multiple other locations throughout the school districts in Wisconsin. It's been wildly popular, increased participation. I can get some ROI and some data and stuff like that that supports that stuff. But to your point around the middle schools, I mean, you should come through there one time. First thing they go to is pizza every single time, every single time. And don't get me wrong, I love it because kids are eating. But if I could get them off the pizza and onto our specialty lines a little bit more, that'd be fantastic. And we're doing that through samplings and getting kids. But it doesn't help that as the kids enter, that's the first thing that they see every time. So
and walking tacos.
if I could serve walking tacos and breakfast at lunch every day, that we wouldn't have any issues. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I was picturing bringing Airmark back in June or July with kind of a year-end summarized report, unless you'd like to hear. I can update you via the Friday update or whatever about our progress with the pods, which we literally started talking pods before COVID, but then things just got away from us. But otherwise, I'll plan on a June, July, something like that, finish the year report.
Agreed.
Survey
You'll have me, I'll
results?
be here.
Great. Thank you again.
No, thank you, appreciate it.
Hi, moving into our next discussion item is the monthly budget report.
Our revised budget has been posted now in the system, and so it's available for all owners to see. And there's nothing of anything much to report right now. We are moving along just as expected. I do hope to put together a few things that will give you some more graphs as to, comparison between budget and actual. And I should have that for you hopefully next month.
Any questions, discussions? Okay, so, Mrs. White.
Under this agenda item, it talks about the tax levy. And I was surprised that there was no collections for September through November shown there.
Through November.
Yeah, normally we don't get payments until
January will be,
January. 'Cause the property tax bills don't go out till December.
Okay,
And the ones we might get at the very beginning of our fiscal year are actually for the prior fiscal year, so they're booked as a receivable. We don't capture that. Here, this is fiscal year by fiscal year, so we can tie up to the levy that was approved. So I think that's the variance you're
okay.
probably seeing.
Anything
and
else?
then I was able to include in there this month, the health claims payable and the dental claims payable for you, for your review. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
No, I appreciate that. I know that's been an ask that I've had. And it comes back to the, kind of the growing balloon that we have and when claims are submitted and how that works and just making sure, especially as we roll through this next budget cycle, do we have to take something else into consideration for relief, growth, et cetera? Because I think we were all waiting for the shoe to fall after COVID, and it really did not.
No, it did not.
Actually helped us. As odd as that is to say.
Yeah. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, discussion items? Okay. Our final discussion item for the night is the ESSER update.
Yep, so I just provided a real quick synopsis here for you to see all of the allocated funds as well as the spent funds or the amounts actually received. I did finalize the ESSER 2 claim this past week. We have collected 100%, or we have claimed 100% of ESSER 2, and we should be receiving that payment then within the next couple weeks. And then it's on to ESSER 3. I'll be working very closely with teaching and learning and so forth, and making sure that we have all of our ducks in a row there, as well as with Darren on the HVAC pieces, so that we can finalize ESSER 3 by September of next year.
And then we'll be done.
What will we talk about? Any questions? Okay.
you.
This meeting is then concluded. The next Finance and Facilities meeting is on Monday, January 8th at 5:30 PM in the boardroom. This is our last FNF of this year, so wishing everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a blessed New Year. We'll see ya next year, or Wednesday. Have a good night.
Is that an option? Sounds